Rhandi. Welcome to the A-Plane podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. For our guests that don't know who you are, do you want to give just a brief introduction to you and kind of what you're about?
Yeah. I feel like I am a jack of all trades, master of none. I have been a running coach for 2 decades. I'm 41, and it's what I've done since I was still in college. I do a little bit of everything. I am an ultramarathon runner. I run on the roads. I've done a handful of Ironman triathlons. I'm a bit of a mountaineer. I love to climb mountains. I think I'm happiest as an athlete in nature and on the trails, but I do love the challenge of all the different events. I love working with my athletes. I'm a mom of 5. That takes up most of my time, and that's my most favorite thing. My kids are ages 4 to 18, so I have my hands full right now, but life is good. So I'm a mom, I'm an athlete, I'm a coach, and just trying to do my best every day.
Yeah, you say jack of all trades, master of none, but I feel like you are like a really good runner. You are like very good at many different aspects of running. And today I feel like we're going to focus on kind of your 100-mile fitness, but you have great like marathon fitness and 50-mile fitness. Like, you're a great runner.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
So I guess to start, this year you attempted the Grand Slam.
Yes, ma'am. Attempted.
Yes. Do you want to kind of explain what that is, kind of how it's unique?
Sure. Yeah. So the Grand Slam of Ultrarunning, what it is it's the 4 original 100-mile races in the U.S., the first 4. And the challenge, well, there's actually 5 in it, but you have to complete 4 of them in order to be a Grand Slam finisher. The challenge is you have to do all the races in the same season. So somebody else maybe who's pieced together over the years and done them all, that's not the Grand Slam. So the 5 races are Old Dominion 100, and that is in Virginia. Vermont.
And that's what, like 14,000 feet of gain or something?
Yes, okay. I think so. I think just like right around 14,000, and that's in Virginia, in June. Okay. So you get the humidity, there's definitely single track, but also a lot of like dirt roads and farm roads. Not very much pavement, but it's a good mixture of surfaces for sure. The second one is the Vermont 100, and that's in the Green Mountains, and it's the most stunning course. And that one has more, I think, like 18,000 feet of gain.
18,000.
That one is a little more formidable, which you're like, oh, it's at sea level. Those are just hills for us Westerners. How are they going to get all this Oh, they get it.
They find it.
Oh, they found it. Those hills just kept coming for 100 miles straight. I'm like, just give me some flat road. Give me something. And then the next one in the series is Western States 100, which we are all well versed with. I didn't think I had a shot to get into that, so I didn't even try. And then the next one is the Leadville 100, and I had some sponsors with some opportunities there. I did enter through the lottery just like everyone else, but didn't get chosen, so I was really fortunate to lean on that sponsored entry. And then the last one, which everybody who participates in the Grand Slam has to finish with, the Wasatch 100, which is our backyard course. And I actually didn't get into that one either, but really, really cool thing that Wasatch 100 does that I wish more races did is if you are a Grand Slam athlete and you finish the first 3 races, they will allow you into it. But one of the big things about being a Grand Slam athlete is that you do need to enter the lotteries just like everybody else. And it is a huge part of it isn't just the training, it's actually getting into all the races in the same season, which was, I'm a spoiler alert, I wasn't able to finish the Grand Slam. And that was a hard thing because it's the resources, the time, the money, the effort it takes to get into each of them is difficult. So the Grand Slam, that's what you have to do. You have to finish 4 of the 5 races in the same season, and every athlete ends with the Wasatch 100. And I've had my eye on it for years, but I wanted to get more experience as a 100-mile athlete. I have a lot of experience as like a mountaineer climbing big mountains and running on trails, but combining the two of being an experienced 100-mile athlete and mountain athlete, I'm still a work in progress, and but I wanted to have a couple more 100s under my belt before I attempted it. And I came back from New Zealand feeling like having this like reckless optimism that I could accomplish anything. And I thought, you know what, this is the year, let's go for it. And so I went for it.
That's awesome.
You got to shoot your shot. Doesn't always mean it's going to have the desired outcome, but there's nothing wrong with shooting your shot. So.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of want to focus on today is like the courage it takes to like even start some of these like ultra challenges, like
Mm-hmm.
knowing that like this might not be possible for you, but also believing that it is possible for you, and like taking that jump, I think is like the scariest and most exciting thing in the world.
It is. It's super exciting and super terrifying all at once. And I think it's okay. Those things can simultaneously exist. You can be scared, but you can still go for it. Yeah.
So I think one of the hardest parts of this too is all of these 100-mile races are like a month apart.
Essentially,
right?
yeah. Yep. 3 to 5 weeks depending on the race. So yeah, basically.
And I mean, for me, I've only run 100, but after a month, I was not like ready to run another 100. Like I was still like weird. Like I felt weird. And so the recovery aspect would be really difficult. Maybe we can start with like kind of how you started training for it. So you come back from New Zealand and you start training for it. How did that look?
Yeah, so the first race is June.
Yeah.
So I got back from New Zealand in November. And I was very depleted, and maybe we'll focus on that a little bit later. But, I was in starvation mode. I, put my body in a place I had never really put it before.
Yeah.
So the first things first, there was a few months of recovery. I've never once lost like my cycle ever in all my 20 years of endurance training, and I did. And I believe that was the combination of like the starvation and the stress, and we lost weight quickly. And so I wanted, before I did anything other than very low effort, I wanted to make sure my hormones were back in line and that my cycle came back. And luckily it came back pretty quick. I think it took 2 months. So I want to say in January, February, it was time to start building and focusing on what it was going to take for me to complete the Grand Slam. So training at the beginning looked like building just a very, very hardy base. One of my strengths is my aerobic fitness. I can kind of run, slow is such a relative word, but I can kind of run slow forever, right? Like that's, I feel like we all have our different strengths. And even as a kid playing sports, running track, my coaches would say that, so that's just, so in the back of my brain, you get those little things as a little kid. So that I've always kind of had this almost like, well, I can run forever. I'm fine. Right. They told me that when I was little, and I just believed them. So I'm like, wasn't the best with the ball, but I could beat someone down the field. So I always have had that in the back of my mind. I can run forever. So when I learned about 100-mile races, I was like, oh, I got to try that, like,
that's me.
I think that might be me. So the first things first, it was building in the winter. Sometimes it's hard to get up high in the Wasatch. You can, great climbing. And I definitely did that. But it was just making my aerobic engine, my base so sturdy, so wide. So all those other aspects of training I could build on top of it would be supported by a lot of base. So a lot of, easy, low heart rate running and some really focused, specific strength training. I knew I'd be on the trails all summer and I didn't want to get injured. So a ton of like single leg focus, a ton of strength focus on what I feel is best for a trail athlete. Not that doesn't transfer over into anybody who runs, but trail running in particular is a one-legged sport. You're hopping back and forth so much. And so really focus on building my strength training back up, and not in terms of like aesthetics, in terms of functional training that's going to like give me the best chance at not getting injured and to be able to, for my body to support what I was about to ask it to do.
So for you, like, I mean, you're a mom of 5. You mentioned that before.
Yeah.
How high a volume are you able to get? Like when you say you're building like this big base of aerobic volume, what is that for you?
It varies.
Yeah.
My husband jokes around like, I think I am efficient. I think I do. Sometimes it's not much. I think that I tapped out, not counting the only 100-mile weeks I had were the weeks I ran 100 miles.
Awesome.
I think that I had some really strong weeks with a ton of climbing in like the late spring, in the 80s. I think 85. I love to hover between like 55 and 65. It's super manageable for me. My body can handle more than that, but my schedule oftentimes cannot.
Yeah.
So I'm making, so that's where I'll have like my bread and butter, just to where I can do that in my sleep. It doesn't tax my system, my resting heart rate's low. And then I'll be like, okay, I'll look at the calendar that month ahead of time. I'm like, the third week in March, no one has a birthday party. No one has a soccer tournament or a dance competition. I think I can hit 85 miles that week. I can get up early and run. I can run while the kids are in school. I can run oh, Graham, you're going to be home early on Tuesday. Can I run that? Can I run in the evening? You've got dinner, so I will say, and this is a privilege, I have an amazing partner. I could not do that without he's 110 supportive of my dreams. I'm 110% supportive of his dreams. And so it definitely takes teamwork, because in our family, we want our kids to see us reaching for their dreams because we want them reaching for their dreams. And so we are really big on that. So the only way that I can make this work is teamwork, right? It's not going to be possible without that. And then getting very creative with my schedule. So I have a lot of weeks that hover between 55 and 68, just under 70. That's hard for me to get on a busy week. I'm always I'm trying to get there.
Yeah.
But then I just have some really strong weeks, maybe every third week or something like that. I'm okay, I can, because oftentimes I'm not running when my kids are around. I'm getting the leftovers. So it's can I hit that 5:30 a.m. alarm, or can I run on a lot of times when I'm big in training, it's running on my treadmill at night after all my kids are in bed.
Yeah, I remember seeing that because I've been following you for a minute. You put out amazing content. You guys should look at it if you haven't. But I remember seeing you posting on your story or posting a reel about getting 10 miles in on an inclined treadmill, and it would be 11 p.m. or something. Yeah. And that's work. That's hard work.
And that's where it's how bad do you want it? Because yes, I love The Office and I would rather be cuddling up with my honey, having a bowl of sugar cereal, watching The Office. That sounds amazing. And that is amazing. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I do that too. Yeah. But it's making that decision, what's the goal right now? Yeah. And so how about we do that Sunday night? But I'm I got to go down to the basement. I just got to do it. I got to do it. And the first 2 miles suck. Anything after 9 p.m. is I
hate running at night. I hate it so much.
If I do a late evening run, solid. Yeah. Love it, But late evenings, I'm usually soccer mom, dance mom, getting dinner on the table, helping whoever is home with homework. It's that window from the time my kids go to school till they're in bed. Those are not training hours for me. Yeah. Occasionally I get lucky. I'm I'm at the soccer field. I've got 40 minutes while he warms up. There's always a running outfit in the car, in every car. I've got a pair
every
of
single
shoes.
Car.
Yeah, there's a first aid kit. There's a running kit, right? So I definitely squeeze things in the in-betweens. But yeah, it takes a lot of pivoting, a lot of getting creative, and then just getting out the door, because I have to run at weird times when you don't want to run, right? Or by getting out the door, that might mean on the treadmill, right? Yeah. So
whatever that means.
I'm all over the place, but hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
This episode is brought to you by Mercedes Benz Van Center Warner, Utah's largest selection of recreational and commercial vans for all purposes, new, pre-owned, and rentals. They are passionate about supporting the running and active community in Utah. Check them out at mbvancenterwarner.com. I feel too, those late night treadmill runs might have helped with the grind of the Grand Slam. 100. Just not being super tired, not wanting to do it, and then doing it and getting it done.
Yeah, no, I agree. And in fact, I feel it's helped me so much with the mental side of things over the years, running those weird. Oh, I did a midnight marathon on the treadmill. Now, I don't ask my athletes to do a midnight marathon on the treadmill, but I do feel in 100-mile training, it's really important that you go do a night run or two. Yeah. When your legs are tired, when you did a long run the day before. It's important, not just for your legs, but for your mind.
Yeah. I've only ran one, but on this last block, a friend suggested doing a morning and an evening run. Yep. Just because you're never going to want to do the evening run. Yep. And I was that's disgusting. That's not going to help. But then I did it and it helped so much. Yes.
So in my athletes 100-mile blocks, when they're getting close and you're into that race, specificity, that there's always at least one of those on a Saturday or Sunday. And it'll be 13 a.m. miles, 13 p.m. miles. I'm I'm so sorry. Good luck. Find a friend. Yeah. You have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Disgusting. But it does work.
Yeah. Yes. Disgusting. But effective.
Yes. Yeah. Disgusting but effective. Yeah. So maybe let's get into your first race, which was Old Dominion. Yeah. Okay. Going into it, what were you nervous about? What were you excited about? Did you still have residual stuff from the Race to Survive?
So residual stuff from Race to Survive, my gut was not the same. So that's the only thing that I was nervous about. There's a lot of like data and scientific research on like fasting, sometimes for prolonged periods, how you can like reset your gut. And I think it did some good things for me, but it also did some bad things. And it's me being like mature enough and like disciplined enough to say, you know what, gluten is not working for me right now. Or you know, so we're still working on it, to be honest. I'm a year out and I'm still definitely making headways.
Yeah.
But I was nervous about it, that it would affect the way I was able to consume calories enough to perform the way that like my fitness was there. But
yeah.
And it definitely had its effects.
So when you say like not the same, do you just mean like it can't digest things well?
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, mainly digestion,
Okay.
digestion issues, and then maybe some like, I wouldn't necessarily call them full-blown food allergies, but food sensitivities.
Okay.
Kind of like my good, better, best on my body has shifted, and I'm like, gosh, I can't really get away with eating these things without having like dire consequences.
Dire.
Well, yes, and I mean dire. And also for me, I just, unfortunately or fortunately, my athletic performance is on weekly training as well as in races is greatly affected by what I consume.
Yeah.
And some people, like my husband's a tank. He's a 100-mile runner, fast marathoner. He can eat anything and it's fine. And he just he just goes. And I like eat the wrong thing and I like barf for an hour, you know, and I'm just like,
that's not
this
good.
is not fair.
Yeah, that's
This is
not fair.
But this is my reality. Nothing's
Yeah.
fair. So this is what we're dealing with. This is what we're
Yes.
up against. So going into Old Dominion, I definitely felt fit and ready. Do I feel like I hit my training the way that I wanted to perfectly? Do I feel like I executed all the volume I wanted? No. But that rarely happens. Like I'm not a professional runner. Like but I in my brain I want to perform like one.
Yeah.
But I'm not like, I'm like, this is not my full-time job. I do it part-time and I have to. So I went in feeling ready. Did I go in feeling as ready as I thought I would? No, but that rarely happens. But I certainly felt excited and that I had enough fitness under my belt to accomplish what I sought out to do. Now, I think the two things I was most nervous about was how my gut would respond late in the race, one, and then two, making sure that like my pride and my ego stayed down low, because I do love to run me a fast race, and that's not what this was ever about. That for me, I knew that me getting through the Grand Slam wouldn't be trying to run all these fast times. So paying attention to my heart rate, paying attention to my effort, and finding that sweet spot. I coached myself through this. That sometimes I have a coach, sometimes I don't, but a lot of good friends, mentors, some of them which were our professional ultra runners, chatting with, you know, going back and forth. And what we kind of came up with on my goals was to find that sweet spot between not running too fast, but more time on my feet means more time to recover. And recovery was such a huge part of the Grand Slam, right? So how much longer is it going to take me to recover if I'm out on my feet for 30 hours versus 23 hours, right?
Yeah.
So threading that very thin needle of line of trying to hit that sweet spot. So that was the goal. And I figured we'll listen to my body and I'll slow down if I need to slow down, right? So trying to find that spot. So Old Dominion started out good. It went really well until it didn't. My heart rate, my effort was manageable, but a theme with all the races, ran into some really severe like nausea and barfing late into the race. And you know, everybody's like, puke and rally. This isn't a puke and rally thing. Like I've done that before. You puke, you feel better, you move on.
Yeah.
For me, it was like puke until there's nothing left for like hours and hours and hours, and try to move in between it. So, but I was able to work through it and eventually keep it at bay. I just had to stop eating. So I really didn't have any calories the last 30 miles.
Oh my gosh.
Besides like a few sips of like Crank, which is higher in, sodium, potassium, calories, carbs in general.
Yeah.
So it was just like sipping that, like a little slow IV and water.
Did you have muscle cramps?
No, I don't.
That's
muscle
pretty
cramps.
lucky then.
Yeah, muscle cramps. I can count on one hand in all my races how many muscle cramps I've ever had.
Oh, really?
So I just like that's cramping isn't the way my body responds. You took a drink. I had to take a drink.
Yeah.
Looks like the right call.
Looks thirsty.
So not a lot of muscle cramps. But I was able to rally and kind of, I really wanted to go sub 24. I was, honestly looking at the top women Grand Slam times going, maybe I could squeak in top 10 if everything went right. But that was like the tertiary goal. That was like, if I'm feeling great on every race. But in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I need to keep the times under if, and my legs felt great. My heart rate was low. My fitness felt amazing the entire time. It was just my gut. So I ended up finishing, I think, just over 23 hours. I had a couple really rough hours in the middle of the night where there was like 30, 40-minute miles for a long time because of all of the nausea. But I got through that and I was able to rally a little bit and come in under 24. So,
which is amazing, especially for like no calories the last 30 miles.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned something on Instagram about like being in second for a while and then having to like grapple with letting that go.
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, that was brutal because that wasn't my intention, to be. And then like, I think Graham or someone in my crew or it's maybe someone on the course let me know, and I was feeling so good. I was like, well, shoot, maybe I can podium and do the Grand Slam. I was humbled quickly a few hours after that. Like, stay in your lane, sister. Like, nice try.
Like, wait.
But I was sick for a couple days after that race. And actually, this has never happened. I mean, like, I had like a wheelchair in the airport. I could not walk.
Wow.
If I walked, I would start throwing up. Like, so this isn't normal.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? This isn't like your normal, like, oh, I got to figure this out. Like, I'm eating, So that part's still a work in progress.
So after that, you're like in the wheelchair at the airport because you like can't walk.
Yeah.
Did you ever think like, I don't know if this is possible? Like, what was the debate in your mind on that? Or were you just like full steam ahead? I'm figuring this out.
Full steam ahead, baby. Like reckless. Full steam ahead. I mean, definitely like, oh crap, like some expletives in my mind. Like, golly, like I didn't even get to tap. I was bummed out. I felt like I didn't even get to tap into my fitness because the nausea stopped me from doing that. The gut issues stopped me from tapping into what I had worked so hard from like kind of late January to June, this whole like this massive block that I prepared for mentally. I knew that I was all in and there, like you would have to drag me off the course in order for me to stop. I was committed. I was registered. I knew I was going to try no matter what, but it did make me nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, what if this keeps happening? But then I was like, oh no, maybe this was just like a one-time thing, And so, yeah.
So how did you recover? You had 5 weeks?
I think between the first, because that was early June, and then mid-July for Vermont 100.
So maybe like 6 weeks.
It might have even been 6 on that first one. It was
6.
at least 5. So no running whatsoever. On my plan, it was 7 to 10 days. I think I did a easy run on a week out. And my legs felt fine. My heart rate was low. It was like 3 to 5 miles. And then I did the same thing. So the way that I kind of approached my recovery between all the races was a week off. If you want to hop on the spin bike or go on a walk or a hike with your kids, really easy. Like I did a little bit of that just to help with the soreness and the fatigue. But the focus was extra sleep, extra calories, nutrient dense food, lots of water, lots of supplements, red light and cryo. And then kind of reintroduce running to my body that second week every other day. And not a lot, like never more than 5 miles, just like reminding my legs. And then about 2 weeks out, I'd start to put in strides, no workouts yet. And like, see how my body responded to like, not even like fast strides, like a tempo effort stride, like remind my legs they had some turnover. And then kind of as I got the green light and as I noticed my heart rate would go back down, I just want to make sure my resting heart rate, I wanted to see data that my body was recovered, not just my mind. Because it's really easy to get carried away in your mind. Because I'm doing the Grand Slam, man. Like I got to be running. So we had this whole group of Grand Slam athletes. And a lot of them were like out grinding 3-4 days after the races. And I'm like, that's good for you. I've never been that way though. And I don't get stressed when I take breaks. Maybe I err on too much of the side of big breaks. I would say if anything, I err on that side than the other. And so sometimes I will have to play a little bit of catch up rebuilding fitness, but I would rather it be that way than me get injured or me feel burned out. Because I don't deal with a lot of injury or burnout. And I think that's because I'm pretty generous with my recovery. And I feel like it helps me. It's good all around. So I would say 2 weeks of massive recovery and then kind of a 3 week. I fit in, I think, 2 long runs and then maybe 3 workouts, like not hardly anywhere. So from the point of Grand Slam on, in my mind, I had built all the fitness that I can build. It was about maintaining what I built and recovering. That's it. I had no delusions of grandeur that I was going to like build up my threshold or get faster. It was like, girlfriend, the work was done. Like your bed was made in June.
Yeah.
Really, like it's like too little too late. So it was just about maintaining the fitness that I had. And truthfully, that recovery process between each race, I lost a little fitness every time. And I knew that would happen. Yeah. And maybe for some people who recover a little quicker, maybe they would have a different story to tell. But for me, knowing my body, knowing that I'm not the athlete that's going to get 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night, like I'm momming first. I am momming first. So guess what? If we had something with the kids that I needed to prepare for, like I've got 6 hours of sleep going. And so I'm not going to be silly and go, do a workout the next morning. 15, I'm not gonna go crank out. Run as fast as you have strength and be okay knowing that, on paper, if I was to have created the perfect Grand Slam training cycle, I would have done more. But that literally wasn't an option for me. Yeah. So you do the best with what you have. Yeah. So
I think that's awesome. So many people need to be reminded that, and maybe because you're a coach and you've just like seen it with so many of your athletes, maybe that helps remind you. I don't know, but yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you do anything specific between Old Dominion and Vermont to kind of work on your gut, or were you just like, please fix, and then?
Honestly, with it being the first one, I was just hoping and praying it was a one-off.
Okay.
So I've had a dairy allergy my entire life, whey, casein, all of it. There's those funny memes like consequences, suffer the consequences. Yes, I can deal with those consequences, but so sometimes I have it. But for me, it's on a deeper level. My athletic performance is good. I get fatigue. I get I'll retain a lot of water, so I won't I'll get swollen. Different things happen. Anyways, so I just focused on healing my gut by eating really, really well between races. So that was what I thought was best. We looked through all my food. I hadn't eaten anything weird. I counted up my carbs. I counted up my calories. Everything checked out, which was super frustrating because I'm like, I don't know what I did wrong.
And you don't have time for an elimination diet at that point.
Right.
If you have 5 weeks, that's like the beginning of an elimination diet.
Right. And then my stomach would be fine once so there was so much, and hopefully this isn't TMI, but we're ultra runners here, so nothing really is TMI. There was like so much throwing up that like my throat and stomach were like destroyed for a couple of days, like where it was difficulty, like everything burned coming down like those. So there was just a healing process kind of that first week, which is another reason I wouldn't have run too soon, because I'm like, my body was like, girlfriend, you need to chill. So we chilled. But yeah, there was just mainly like trying to just really fill my body with nourishing food. And my stomach always felt better in between the races and felt good. And so I just like crossed my fingers and toes. And I tried to look at, we noticed that we did find one anomaly in Old Dominion. Sorry, there's so many races. Sometimes I have to think for a second and make sure I'm talking about the right one, which was, and this had happened in another race where I'd gotten really sick in one other race, which was Leadville a couple years ago. Okay. And I did one thing we realized that I did again, and it was, I was feeling so good. This was around just before the 50-mile mark of Old Dominion, and I sat down and ate like a ton of food. Okay. I am 5 feet 3 inches tall. I weigh less than 120 pounds. I'm not so in terms of volume, when people say how many grams of carbs, it's about your body size too. It's funny. People want this exact number, but there's so many factors that go into that. So for a big guy to come in and throw down a 6-inch sandwich and a protein shake and a blah, 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 well, you're 200 pounds and you're 6 feet tall. Like that's, your body can metabolize
like 6,000 calories a day on average.
Exactly. Yeah. But I was feeling so good, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna take down, I'm gonna like sit down for a moment, take 5 minutes, and I ate a half a sandwich. I had a half a protein shake. I did a little bit of a smorgasbord thing. And in hindsight, that was like for me, that's a no-no. Yeah. And I know that, but I was feeling so good. I'm like, oh, let's get on top of the calories. Yeah. Let's get in some real food. And about 20 minutes after that, that's when I started getting nauseous. Same thing happened in Leadville. So in hindsight, we thought it was just me maybe like triggering some sort of, like there's like a hypothalamic brain response when you overdo it and it kicks it. I was trying to science it out way too much, but that was the only common denominator, was I threw down too many calories. So that was the one thing. So we're like, let's just not do that. Just
Yeah.
a steady, even stream. You know what works for you. Let's look at all of your races where you've been the most successful. You never did that. So we thought that maybe that was it. So going into race number 2, it was heal your gut. Only eat things you know that work for you, and don't ever slam down 500 calories in 5 minutes. Like, you did that once, it didn't work. You did it twice, didn't work. That one's out.
Do it a third time.
Like, you know, it's like fool me once, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, good grief, I did it again. And which is wild. And I think it's a good reminder that, especially with these ultra distances, they're always a work in progress. It doesn't really matter that you've done it many times. It's really easy to make mistakes. There's so many factors that go into having a successful race. And also our bodies change, and what works one time doesn't always work the next time.
So. And too, like, I feel like with marathon, people can like dial everything in so like scientifically almost. It's like the same thing every time. And I mean, some marathons are a little bit more hilly, like 1,200 feet is like kind of like a really scary marathon.
Totally.
But with ultras, like, there's so many different variables that if you had the same race plan race to race, it wouldn't be that awesome. So
agreed.
Like, that's another reason that like all of this is hard, because you can't just like repeat what you did before and expect it to be perfect.
No, that's great. And you're, again, with a marathon, when you're out there for 3 to 4 hours for your average participant, 3 to 5, we'll say, that's such a short amount of time your body can handle that, you know, with, like you said, with these longer distances, you're looking at weather, you're looking at humidity, you're looking at, for a female, where are you in your cycle? You know, I mean, there's so many, the elevation, there's just, there's endless variables that are going to adjust your game plan.
Okay. Well, going into Vermont 100, that one was a really good race for you.
It was a good race for me. Yeah, it went great. I felt so strong. I felt 10 times better at the start of Vermont than I did for Old Dominion, which was so cool.
That's cool.
I was like, dude, I did this 6 weeks ago. I feel like $1 million. So at this point, I was like, Grand Slam in the bag. I mean, I was like pinching myself by how I felt like I was holding back the whole time.
That's so
like,
cool.
I felt like I was
so
like
cool.
really holding back, almost to the point where I was like, man, I wonder if I should push it harder, because like I just feel so good. But then I thought, no, you know, like, again, that whole stay in your lane, look at the big picture. So my mindset for Grand Slam, to back up just for a brief moment, was this is not 4 races. This is one giant race with 4 stages. So like, this is stage 2. You've got a long ways to go. So be smart, follow the plan. So I did that. And I was really proud of myself for doing that, because I didn't let ego get in the way. I didn't worry about what place I was in. I didn't let any of that, especially because race 1 was so difficult and I was hanging on for dear life. I just followed my plan. I felt amazing. I had such an incredible crew there with me, supporting me. And I felt phenomenal until, let me see, when Corey, I think Corey paced me first. I think when he picked me up, somewhere in the mile 70s, they don't let you have a pacer for too long at either of. So Old Dominion, you only can have a pacer for like this one 8-mile section. And that was the section I was sickest. So that was really nice. I had my buddy Kale there hooking me up. And then I got sick in the 70s or 80s. Gosh, I wish I remembered. I should have like taken notes. Sorry. I don't know. But this time I recognized it was coming. So I stopped eating. And when I stop having calories, it seems to hold it at bay, which is such a oxymoron, because I need the calories to finish the race. And so it was like this really rough spot to be in. So it was like, we knew I could hold down applesauce. I wasn't doing well with the sports nutrition products. So at this point I'm going, I wonder if there's something in something that's not agreeing with me. So this is when I was starting to maybe say, I wonder if it's like some sort of sports performance product. But anyway, so we switched to real food. I had to walk a lot more because, again, holding down the nausea, because I knew that if I started throwing up, I probably wouldn't stop. So that's what we have figured out with me. I have to not throw up.
You're like,
once I do that, it's over. It's not a puke and rally. It's a puke till you finish, you know? So I was able to work through that. Corey paced me, helped me through that. Then I had my buddy Kale. Then my husband Graham paced me for the last 10 miles. And I think at mile 93, I made it to mile 93 this time though. I didn't barf in the 70s.
7 left.
Like, 7 left. And I was running so well up to that point. I was on par until I got sick with Corey. I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be right around 20? and my heart rate was low. Again, I felt great. And I was like, well, good grief, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And then it slowed down a little bit and I'm like, that's fine. That was never my goal anyways, with the nausea. And I started barfing at mile 93. I get done barfing and I'm just walking. I'm crawling along. I'm kind of laughing with Graham. What can you do at that point? Yeah. And Graham looks at me and he's like, honey, you're not going to want to hear this, but if you start running right now, you can still make it in under 22 hours. And I looked at him and I was like, screw you. I was like, screw you, Graham. And I said, I don't care about my time. You know, you're so irrational, so dramatic. And he like looked at me and he's like, you're going to care in the morning, Randi. And I was like,
you're like, I hate that you know me.
I'm like, I am going to care in the morning. So I like somehow he's like, you need to just like, it's like a 12, 13 minute mile and you can make it. Like, just start shuffling your feet. So I was like, well, okay, I'll try. I'm like crying. Like, you're so mean. You're such a bully. Like, and so I start shuffling and I'm like, okay. And so I start picking it up and I'm just jogging, you know, I'm jogging along with endless hills. Like, we're still not at 18,000 feet of gain on my watch. I'm like, how? Like, wait, so I have to still do another 1,500 feet in the last 6 miles? You know, like, this is absurd. And I'm trying to do the math and he's like, you don't need to do the math. Just trust me. If you can jog, you can make it in under 22 hours. So I'm jogging and every time I'd walk, he'd just remind me, he's like, it's not over yet. Like, stop. Like, you've got this. Like, you're not throwing up anymore. You're fine. Like, just run, Randi. And I'm like, okay. So I just needed those reminders, like pacers and like your crew, they can make me emotional. Like, they are such a huge part. It does take a village, and people do it alone, and mad respect and honor. And I have done 100 with no pacers and one crew, and it's another story for another day. I wanted to do it that way, and that was a great experience. But Corey Woltering, who's a professional ultramarathoner, I was on Race to Survive with him. When I was like in the 80s, and he was at one point he had told me, Randi, like, you can still make it. You need to make it in under 22. I know you can do that. And I was like, man, I trust you. You're a coach. You know what you're doing more. Yeah. I was like, but sometimes it just takes somebody out of your mind to tell you what you can do. And so most of us who are ultra runners are also, we crew and we pace because you have to pay it forward and you want to pay it forward. And I argue to say I like it even more than running them myself, right? But it's a good reminder that like sometimes we need somebody outside of us to tell us what we can do, because we get irrational late in these 100-mile races. Like, we really do. It's like really hard to be of sound mind in the middle of the night when you've been running, all day. Totally. And maybe for 2 days for some people, and that's very normal. Like, your average finish time is in like the 30s, right? For a 100-mile race. And so I had that in the back of my mind. Corey said it, and I was like, he said it, I can do it. And then Graham told me I could do it. So I just kept shuffling along, and I realized we had about 3 miles to go. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do my second 100-mile race in the last month and a half in under 22. And this is so funny. I wish we could like post a video up of this right now. I felt like I was running so fast. Like, it's like Michael Scott, like, look at me, I'm fast, I'm running so fast. And I knew we were like a mile and a half, and I said to Graham, this is the influencer in me. Sorry. I was like, honey, are you recording me? I'm going so fast. And he was like, yep, babe, I'm already recording you.
That's so cute.
And I watched the video the next day in the airport, and I'm like an ogre. Like, hobbling
inside the poles. I love it.
I felt like Prefontaine. I was like, I am going so fast right now. I don't know what sort of like weird hobble I had going on, but it got me in just under 22. I think I was like 21:50 something. And
that's awesome.
And oh my gosh, Vermont 100 has the best 100-mile finish I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, you're in the middle of this gorgeous forest, dense forest, and they take milk jugs and they put like lanterns inside them. Like, the whole last mile is lit up and you can't see anything, but you can hear people. I was so like, cool. It's like some weird drug fog dream. I'm like, what did we do?
It's dark at this point,
but yes, it was dark. It's the middle of the night. Vermont 100 is maybe the most beautiful course I've ever done. I cannot recommend it enough. Everybody should do it. It's a lottery system. Start throwing your name in. The race director is amazing, super well marked, super well organized. So I got to put in a plug for that race. Like, I want to go back and do it again so bad. So race number 2 went great. I was sick, but I made it to the end. I barfed all night in the hotel room. I woke up at 6 a.m. naked on the couch with a barf bowl. I still had half my race gear on.
It's like ultra running blackouts.
Yes, ultra running blackouts. no substances
Yeah.
needed. But I did it and it was awesome. And I recovered really well from that race. I did get, like I said, I got sick afterwards, but I was able to eat the next day. I think the recovery went probably, which was interesting because it was 18,000 plus feet of gain, a couple hours faster. And I recovered probably twice as quick as I did from Old Dominion. So after that race, I was worried about my stomach.
Yeah.
But once again, but I had a lot more confidence. I was like, okay, I'm halfway there. And I felt like $1 million. I was like, okay, this is working. So I just repeated the same recovery process. This was a shorter turnaround, Leadville.
4 weeks?
4 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was like 2 weeks of recovery, a week of training, and like a week of tapering. I got in one really amazing long run where it was like all above 10,000 feet, just like over in the canyons. And what's that? The Wasatch Crest Trail. You can do like 18 miles if you do an out and back on that. And most of it's above 10,000 feet. So if you are in the Utah area, or even if you're not, and you can get out here for summer training, if you've got like a Colorado, Wyoming, if you got Utah, if you've got a high altitude race, like if you can get into the canyons in the summer here, like the Cottonwoods, like man, you can get some amazing training. So I just had my eyes set on that. I was like, if I can do Wasatch Crest once or twice, I'll be fine for Leadville.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's gorgeous too.
It's
fun.
stunning.
Yeah. Ultra running training is just so fun. It's the funnest training.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
You forget your training because you're just in the mountains. I'm in my favorite place. I grew up in the mountains. That's how it's my happy place. And so I get to train and be in my happy place.
It's like such a privilege. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so going into Leadville in 2022, you'd had some issues with your stomach.
Yeah,
Leadville.
so Leadville in 2022 was my only 100-mile DNF. So I got a repeat. Oh my gosh, that stupid race. Like,
you gotta go back again.
That's haunting me. Like I'm not meant. I would tell my athletes never to say that. Like I'm not meant for a course. Like, right? Like you gotta take chances, and it doesn't always work out okay, but we learned. So Leadville 2022, I would argue to say I was in the best shape of my life. Was running a really amazing race. Want to say I was right around top 10, and the nausea thing that happened to me at Old Dominion happened to me one other time, and that was at Leadville. And so I got pulled at like mile 70 something because I started throwing up at Hope Pass. And you would think, oh, altitude sickness. I don't know, though. I'm a mountaineer. I've been up high a lot, and it felt different. But I did the thing where I ate all the calories.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Because were you getting behind or something?
I was behind on calories. A long story. We had a bad transition at Twin Lakes. They handed me the wrong pack, and so I forgot all my calories.
And you can't really eat anything from the aid stations because
I historically don't have the best ultra running gut, so I try to stick more to the food that I know works for me, and it's not always available at the aid stations. There are certainly things I can eat, but there's no aid stations between Twin Lakes and Hope Pass.
Oh,
and that is a slow part of the race, and I was behind on calories. I forgot my salt. I do like Redmond real salt. Like it just seems to do best with me. So I was behind. It was a hot race. That year was hot, but I do fine in the heat. But I got behind on everything, so I was a little bit nauseous and a little bit weak. And I thought, okay, there's no aid stations until we get to the turnaround. And I was feeling so good at the top of Hope Pass. I thought, let's slam some calories. So my little body, in the course of a few minutes, I had 2 things of noodles, 2 things of ginger ale, like a banana. I was just like, I slammed all this food. And then I left the aid station and like barely missed barfing on all of the volunteers.
Really?
And that was actually coming. Oh, I'm getting a little mixed up. Sorry. That was coming back. That was inbound.
Okay. So you've done Hope's Pass.
Yeah. So I had done Hope. Okay. This was inbound Hope. Which I had done before. I've been with some of the brands I've worked with in the past. I've been to like the Leadville 100 training camps. I've paced athletes and my husband on that section before they changed it. You used to be able to have a pacer on Hope, but the 2022 was the first year you weren't allowed to, which that's another story for another day. That now you've got to do it alone, and that's fine. It's the hardest part of the race. I think the double Hope Pass is one of the hardest sections of any 100-mile race in the U.S. It's just because it's so close together and it's such a steep climb.
Yeah.
Just at a hard part in the race, and so it's definitely very formidable. But yeah, I was just behind on calories and ate too much and lost it. And we're working on figuring out, for me, once I throw up once, I cannot seem to stop it. And that's, something I'm working on outside of racing, trying to figure out what's doing that. So I was not able to finish Leadville because I threw up so much. I was moving too slow in between.
So you missed a cutoff, or the medics pulled you at
mile 70 something would have, I think I barely missed the cutoff, but I also was throwing up so much. They were like, "Girlfriend, you're done." And I was like, "Yeah, I am done."
Yeah.
Like I was starting to pass out, between,
normal things.
I was taking trail naps. My friend Keith was pacing me, and I don't even really remember this. I just throw my pulls down and lay down I woke up with like bug bites all over me. I'm like, "Rhandi, what did you do?"
Again, ultra running blackouts.
Super
normal.
Yeah, me and Leadville have some unfinished business, and I actually have no interest in doing it for a bit. It was pretty traumatizing the second time because
it sounds super traumatizing.
It shouldn't be, but nonetheless, like it's been a rough race for me. It's a thorn in my side to the point where I'm almost like, I'm never going back. I'm not doing that again. But that's not my style. And I do have unfinished business, but we're going to leave that one be for a bit.
Yeah.
Just
let it sit.
Yeah, I'm going to let that one sit.
So at that point, because isn't Ouray 100 also possibly part of the Grand Slam, or no?
It is not. I don't know. Maybe
it's
been I know over the years, maybe they've considered adding extras to it.
Okay.
It's part of the Rocky Mountain Slam.
Okay, the Rocky Mountain Slam.
Yes, which is a separate series and actually harder races.
Okay.
But the Grand Slam is the OG.
The OGs. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you DNF'd Leadville, at that point, there's really like no chance to finish because you have to have
because I didn't do Western States, and you have to have 4. And so in my brain, before I started the Grand Slam, I was 100% sure I would finish it.
Yeah.
So I felt like betrayed by my mind or something. I know that's an odd thing to say, but I'm like, no. When I see a goal happening, it happens. And sometimes I don't see them happening, and that's when I know it's up in the air.
Yeah.
But this one wasn't up in the air. I knew it. And so to have that like taken away was really rough.
Yeah.
That was really devastating. I'm going to go ahead and use that word because when we dream big and we plan and we prepare, and you have crew that makes a lot of people sacrifice on my behalf, it's super embarrassing. And I know that everyone else says, "Oh, it's not embarrassing. You don't have to." But if you put yourself in my shoes, you would be embarrassed too. Yeah. You just are. It's a human emotion, and it's part of the process because we have imperfect minds and imperfect emotions. And so we're going to experience a myriad of emotions, and that's going to be one of them. It was like, I was so embarrassed and just so disappointed. And, I just feel like I let myself down, let my family down, let my kids down. I was able to quickly move through that and use it as a teaching moment for my family, for my kids. And that's like, you got to dream big, but it doesn't mean like you shoot for the stars. It doesn't mean you always hit it. Yeah. It means you pivot, you readjust, and you move forward, and you're better and stronger for it. But yeah, for Wasatch 100, because if I would have gotten in the lottery, I still could have done Wasatch, which I would have, because I would have just loved. I've never gotten in on the lottery of Wasatch 100.
It's freaking hard.
Oh my goodness, I'm putting in again this year, and I'm like, well, we'll see. I feel like I just have to put in every year, and I think I've run that entire course. Most of us probably have
pacing.
Who are old pacing and then on runs, right? Like the trail out of Wasatch 100 is 4 miles from my house. And so instead there was with the Grand Slam going into Leadville 100, there were only 2 women left, me and my new friend Avery. Shout out to Avery. She finished the Grand freaking Slam. She's the only female finisher in 2024. So instead of me running Wasatch 100, I was like, "Hey, would you like a pacer and crew, Avery?" Because we ended up running a lot of all the races together, so we became like really good friends. We really got to know each other, and we connected before Grand Slam started. So we'd had like a base connection, and just really hit it off. And so for me, it was super healing to be able to go and be like, well, dang it, if I can't do it, I'm going to go help somebody else. Go help the last female standing, make sure she finishes the Grand Slam. And so for Wasatch 100 last year, I paced her for a couple sections. I think I ended up running almost 40 miles of it. So I'm like, well, she is such a killer athlete, and she was able to finish. So Wasatch 100 was pacing and crewing for me this year. So,
that's so cool.
Yeah. And a couple of my friends were like,
That's Avery.
should you do that? Like, this is really fresh, Rhandi. That seems a little dark. Like, I don't know if you should. And I was like, not offended, but I was like, no, I need this.
Yeah.
I was like super serious. I was like, I'm like selfish. Yes, I want to help Avery, but it also felt like slightly selfish because I was like, no, I want to be out there like supporting and I want to be out and be a part of it. And I had a lot of my the guy friends that we made this little like Grand Slam family. And I'm like, no, I want to be out there. I want to cheer them all on. I want to see them. I want to be like, if I can't finish it, I want to make sure I can like cheer on other people trying to do it. And so so Grand Slam was 2.5 out of 4 races for me. And that's okay. It is what it is.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said too about like, especially in the ultra world, DNFs, I feel like you get 2 responses. One is like people being like, oh, it's fine, like you learned, and they like try to make it something positive. Yeah. But bottom line is it's not positive. Like it wasn't, you failed. Yeah. You let yourself down and you just like don't feel great about it. Yeah. And I think there is something to be said about like facing that feeling and just like taking it, like swallowing it and saying, okay, like this is what it was and I'm going to try again or try something else again. Yeah. And that's just like it. At least for me, it like teaches me how to take failure in a way that like not everything doesn't have to be like this big positive thing. It's okay to fail.
It's okay to fail. And it's okay to say it sucks. Yeah. It's okay to say I didn't meet my goal and I'm disappointed. Like in order to kind of grieve through the process in a healthy, positive way, you got to go through the stages. Yeah. And it did stink. And there, of course I got random, being vulnerable, putting yourself out there on social media at the beginning, you get passive aggressive comments from people. Oh, well, make sure you hit the mountains, or are you sure that goal's right for you? Or guys going, yeah, good luck with that. Of course what I get on social media is 95% positive. I don't mind the comments. I'm not saying that, but when all of a sudden you don't hit the goal, it just makes it sting. You're naturally going to be like, oh, that's Like, okay. Cool. Yeah. So I had to have a little bit of a pity party. I think the thing I was most disappointed about, I was so excited for the accomplishment of running 4 100-mile races like back to back. That just seemed so cool. So at the beginning, I was going to do like 2 more 100-mile races just so I could get the 4. Yeah. Because I was like in that panic mode of, I didn't reach my goal. What am I going to do? Yeah. And I just was like, no, I had to talk some sense into myself and kind of go through that process and just let it go. Yeah. And let my pride go and be like, you're not healthy right now. There's something wrong with your gut. Because that's why I wasn't able to finish it. Yeah. There's something wrong with your body. And I want to run this sport time old and gray. I want to do this forever. This isn't like a one-time hobby. Check it off your bucket list. Like this is a part of who I am. And I can't abuse my body in a way that I can't come back for this. And it was getting pretty bad. And so it was time for me to step back, take a massive break, reevaluate, try to get some answers. And one thing I also... my anemia returned between races 2 and 3. I had my blood work done. Like Inside Tracker's been really great to work with me. And I had missed, something came up with my kids and I missed my first blood draw. And so I didn't have a baseline and my ferritin was at a 6. After,
oh my gosh.
After Vermont 100, my ferritin was at a 6 and Leadville was in a month. And so I'm not sure if that was related or not. And I just, I had chalked up all my tiredness to like, well, I'm on a 5, I'm a coach, I'm running all the miles. Like, of course I'm tired. I'm trying to do the Grand Slam. Like, I accepted I'm going to be tired for 4 months. Like, I'm like, oh, there's a medical reason behind this.
Oh, my ferritin.
So I've had anemia off and on my entire life, but it had gotten better. And so if you take iron when you don't need iron, you can have iron toxicity. And so there's just as many effects of having too much as not enough. Yeah. So I had pulled back to only taking iron on the week of my cycle. Yeah. And that was enough for a while. Yeah. But again, this goes back to Race to Survive New Zealand and losing my cycle. Yeah. And when my period came back, it was like a monster. And I didn't go get my labs done and I should have, and then I would have known. So again, I've made the mistake before. I've had anemia before, but again, we are human. Like our bodies are constantly growing and changing and evolving and our hormones, I'm 41. I'm not as young as I am and things are like a little more unpredictable. And so I had to heal my anemia and heal my gut. And so I largely took the rest of the year off. I mean, I averaged until a couple weeks ago, probably like 20 miles a week. A couple strength training sessions, a couple easy runs, occasional long run. Maybe I'd pop into the 30s, like do a long run, easy run with friends on the weekends on the trails.
Yeah.
But in large part, the last 4 months since Leadville 100 have just been about healing and just really good recovery. My labs looked really good. Like my cortisol levels were great. So my body seemed to handle the stress of it really well, but I had to figure out my cycle and had to figure out my gut.
Well, I think that there is a couple of things that I want to comment on. Like something to be said about like giving your body the time to rest and like being really serious about before you like jump into, well, this is next. This is what I'm going to do next. And like putting a big stress on your body, like letting yourself be healthy, I think is cool. And then another thing that I also think is cool is letting your kids see you fail at something and watch that be okay. I think that's something that's important for kids to learn and for people to learn and just in general. So I really enjoyed watching you this year. And
Thank you.
I am like really excited to see where you go, and I'm sure that like you might not have goals right now for what next year brings, but I'm excited to see like where you take it, because it's been really fun to watch you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, hitting on what you just said, it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's part of our experience. We're supposed to fail. We're supposed to try really hard. We're supposed to dream big. And sometimes we're going to come up short. But guess what? Sometimes we're not too.
Yeah.
And the joy, the learning, the growth isn't actually in reaching the goal. It's in the process of working towards the goal.
Yeah.
So we all win when we go after something big, whether we finish it or not, if we're all in.
Yeah.
If we're all in, we've grown. We've had the growth.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah.
Yeah. I think there's one quote that goes, it's super cheesy because it's said all the time, but it's like something along the lines of success is like moving from failure to failure without a lack of enthusiasm. And that's just, I adore that about you, because every time, I've only seen you a few times like on the trails, but you're always just happy and enthusiastic. And that's one of the things like I admire most about you. So thank you.
Thank you. Hey, if you're not having fun while you're doing it, then that's the point, right? Yeah.
Well, Rhandi is a coach. She's an amazing coach. You can find her on Instagram. Where can people find you if they want to follow along with what you're doing?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at @RunRhandiRun. My name's spelled weird, but I'm sure you'll have a link or something. I do have a website that has like the basics of my coaching. I don't post a ton on it, but I'm always a DM away. I'm happy to connect and help others. I love coaching. It's there's nothing like seeing other people that you play a small role in helping them reach their goals. And so it doesn't seem like a job. That just seems like
fun.
Yeah. Like, wait, what? Yeah. That's the best. So yeah, I love that very much. And I always love to hear about other people's goals too. So yeah.
Cool. Well, if you would leave our listeners with just one piece of actionable advice before we kind of close off the podcast, what would you leave them with?
I would say as you look towards your future and you're thinking about different goals that you have and you're waiting to find the right time, the right moment to take action, it's not about looking ahead and saying the next 6 months are pretty clear for me. I'm going to go for my goal. It's just about being consistent. It doesn't have to be done perfectly. So start now. Start now. It doesn't have to be that you have time to do all the runs or do all the big things. Take every day and do something for yourself and start now, because there never is going to be the perfect time. There's never going to be the exact right season to go after a goal. So the perfect time is now. So take action now. Don't wait. And I guess be willing to train through a cycle that you know is going not to be perfect and not to be hard, but take it on anyways. Take on the challenge anyways, even when it doesn't look like it's going to be the perfect time to do it, because that perfect time will never come.
Cool. I love it.
Yeah.
I'll link all of Rhandi's stuff below, and thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be on with you, Abby.